Alright, it is now time for the final chapter of Gakkou Gurashi. This is chapter 78. For the last time, we'll look at this nice water flame scanlation page. So come join in on the fun on the Gakkou Gurashi subreddit. Fun. Sure. Before we get to the final chapter, I would like to thank everyone who has helped over the years in releasing the English scanlation of Gakkou Gurashi. Below is a list of everyone I was able to find, and sorry if I somehow missed your name. That's wonderful! That's a really, really nice idea. Thank you to Waterflame or whoever it was that thought to do this. I think that's just a wonderful idea right at the end of the series to recognize all these people as much as you can. Of course, it's going to be really tough to come up with absolutely everyone who contributed, which really drives home just how wonderful a project scanlation is, how much of a huge team effort it is, asynchronous across many countries, across a long period of time. Runtime 2012 to 2019. Wow. Wow. That's quite a long time. Norway scans. I've read quite a lot of stuff that Norway scans has released. I think they're really good. I like that they always translate no way as Norway, like something that they would translate in English to no way, they translate to Norway. And whenever there's yen, they have a note that it's like however many Norwegian kroner. That's funny. That's funny. You should have fun with scanlation. Alright, okay. So fun is over. Fun is over. We might get bombed to death in the next chapter, so fun is over. It made the cover, of course, the final chapter. The four of them sitting in their desk in the blown-out classroom, and here we get to see a rare aesthetic, one that in lots of other kind of apocalyptic series, they really emphasize, like in Girls' Last Tour, in YKK, I can't think of what YKK stands for, but you know that series. There's like other examples, but I can't think of them, where the apocalypse is kind of beautiful. The apocalypse signals a return to nature, a return to the primacy of the outdoors, of being kind of at one with the weather, with the patterns of growth. So something like the cherry blossoms fluttering through here. Of course, also a common trope of graduation, which I think is being implied as well. But the way that the school is so open, that the sun is so bright, that we get those big kind of sun halos and stuff. What I wonder though, it looks like there's some contrails, the stuff that airplanes create, by creating the water vapor from their speed. It looks like there's contrails. Why would there be contrails? Aren't all the planes like downed because of the zombie apocalypse? Did I getcha there, mangaka? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe they're just Sakura's clouds that happen to be like kind of long. Anyways, it looks very lovely is all I'm trying to say. Usually it's just on these color cover pages or magazine covers that Gakkou Gurashi evokes this, the idea of a beautiful apocalypse, of the apocalypse being sometimes even jaw-droppingly gorgeous as all of mankind's vanity crumbles back into nature. Come out into the open with us. So at the bottom it says, final chapter. I don't know how to pronounce this. Sekai Owari Han something? I don't know. Final chapter. Mata ashita. Which means like again tomorrow, like see you again tomorrow. Which is kind of cruel since we won't see them again, since this is the end of the series. 3 years later? You really gonna hit us with the 3 years later? What? 3 years later? Come on. Okay. So, that's kind of clever, I guess. That's a way to write a finale. That the kind of final incidents. Did they get bombed? Did they get rescued? Who survived? Who didn't? Those become mysteries again. 3 years later, now we follow The one of the... Or is this Mikun? I think this might be grown-up Mikun. Mikun in quite classy looking wear. She's actually looking pretty clean, which is not something that the characters have looked in quite some time. The university building certainly still seems worn down. Again, the cherry blossom, signifier of graduation, of the end. And also new beginnings. The fact that she's going into the university library, kind of signifying a new stage in her life. Cherry blossom is also the entrance ceremony flower. We know it's not entirely repaired. We know things aren't quite as they should be. She's stepping on some like glass here, broken glass scattered on the ground. So this is the university they hung out at before, where the reclusive woman was in the library for a long time, before hopping out and joining their adventure for a while. Here we see the extended cast. It just looks like a normal series, doesn't it? Sure, there's some quirky characters, like why does this girl have a shovel? Oh, that's just so silly, she's Shovel Girl. This girl's flying a drone. Oh, that must be the nerdy girl. Don't get tricked. Don't get tricked like I have so many times. Mina no okage de. Everyone's okage de. I don't know what that means. Everyone's okage de, probably. But I still don't know what that means. But in the background it says final chapter. Down at the bottom, I guess the chapter title itself is See You Tomorrow. There's a couple little comments from the author, but I'm not going to bother. Yeah, it's Mikun. Yeah, Mikun's looking good. Looking clean. Oh, there's Rise-san. Okay, I think I fused two characters in my head for a second. Rise-san was the really reclusive girl in the library. And then there was also the Sachio-chan. Sachio-chan. Who joined them and secretly was Bowman-kun and was always kind of up to something and figured out a lot of mysteries. But Rise-san, I think, yeah, just stayed in the library this whole time. Doing? Is there light? Is there electricity? Take this. Certainly. So Mikun had been writing in her journal this entire time. This is Nikki on the cover. Diary, like Yume Nikki. It's literally just like day chronicle, day writing down thing. Volume 21. I guess she's still writing in it. This is like the latest one. And Rise obviously has some sort of arrangement with her. Maybe she's helping digitize them on whatever's left of a computer network. But it seems like everything's all good, right? Everyone's smiling and stuff, and they're kind of like joking around, and like look at the expression Mikun makes in this panel. She's going like, ugh, Rise-san. Like, you can't make that sort of expression when your friends are on the verge of dying. That kind of dead-eyed sarcasm, or not sarcasm, but exhaustion. So it was Kansai this time. How are things over there? It's tough all over, but getting better. So Mikun is traveling Japan, perhaps to inform people about this treatment plan, perhaps to help transport the water. It's bad all over, but getting better. 21 volumes already. It's been quite a while. On that day. Okay. So now we find out. I thought maybe they would draw it out a little more and they would give us some red herrings to make us think some characters were alive or dead, and then we find out they're not. That's often how these like kind of flash forward finales go. But it looks like we're actually going to get now the full flashback narrated by Mikun, who was largely absent in the previous chapter. Just lying there with Kurumi. Kurumi seems like she's dead. On that day, we were just waiting. We'd done all we could do. All that was left was to wait. So this is after Yuki calls it in. Yuki's up on the roof with her shovel. These two are lying in one of the classrooms in the old school life club room, I guess, and Risan, of course, out on the helicopter. Not giving up, counting down, remembering, wishing, praying. So Yuki here is marking some passage of time. There's no way it can be days, because she's up to, what is this, 12? There's no way she's been up there for 12 days, but 12 hours, maybe. Fighting. These are good shots. Again, just the kind of stillness that comes through, and how just desperate the characters are. A helicopter overhead. A helicopter just like this, crashing down. It's what turned their whole world upside down. Almost just as much as the actual zombie apocalypse. If it wasn't for that, they could have been a lot more content in their school for a lot longer. We only learned about this later, but Randall was not a monolith. Okay. So this is, again, the power of this sort of flash-forward, flashback technique. Is we're interspersing our flashback with character information or plot information that the characters would have no way of knowing at the time. We only learned about this later. It's good. It allows for like kind of a more complex and deftly woven story, where you're actually now just sort of giving up on tricking the reader. It's not about misleading people anymore. It's not about like the mystery anymore. It's about like giving the most compelling and thorough explanation you can, which is quite a shift from this series. Kind of a breath of fresh air for this series. I love this shot of the Randall Corporation fighting it out amongst themselves. Well, to say I love this shot seems pretty grim, since it's some poor office workers and some security personnel taking each other's lives. I like how the two guys here with guns, the two guys in like normal shirt and slacks and stuff, who are clearly not trained for any of this, and this was not even hinted at in their job spec. They have the little sweat bubbles. It's just a little silly. I don't know. And they clearly don't know what they're doing. They're taking really awkward poses. This one guy doesn't even seem like he's actually in cover, and it's like the other team is just embarrassed to shoot them. And then all these people in the back hiding even further away. It's very interesting. I'm curious to see what it is, but it reminds me of the Endgame episodes of Evangelion. I hope I don't spoil Evangelion for anyone, but come on, it's been out since like 1997. That near the end, Nerve headquarters itself is getting raided, not by the aliens, not by these supernatural forces, but by other humans, by the UN troops. And suddenly these places that we know so well as like the Nerve Command Center, where they're deploying the EVAs and stuff, and is becoming a site of shootouts, human to human. That these poor, meek workers that were in charge of coordination and stuff had to pick up guns and shoot at their fellow man. I don't know. I just kind of like this tonal shift, and I feel like a story of just the Randall Corporation through the eyes of like one of these workers. As first the Omega virus takes hold outside, and they kind of witness all of that unfolding, wondering how involved are we in this? What can we be doing about this? And then it devolving into this, the violence escalating, coming closer and closer to them. Anyways, so what was actually going on at Randall? They are not a monolith. On the brink of collapse, with no hope for the future, they are divided over how to deal with us. You see some shots, and here is someone that might be talking to Yuki. Because we can see on the screen, I don't know, I don't think that's Bowman-kun. It's like a kind of similar looking logo, and she has the headset on. So it could be that Yuki was actually talking to someone in the midst of a firefight, and that's what the noises were? That's what all the like, hold on, those were like gunshots? And that when it was disconnected, she got shot, maybe? I don't know. Somehow that's like actually a little less bleak than the idea that this person just hung up on Yuki. But still plenty bleak. Oh, yes, it is. I just by scrolling down, I've confirmed it. This person is talking to Yuki. The little details of her character. I think she deserves a little spin-off. What was her life like? How did it get to this? What has she been trying to do this whole time? Found a treatment. Ooh. Okay, so it was the Bome logo. Broadcasting the message. That's what she was doing. Continue. Oh man, I feel bad for saying it feels kind of like comedy. Interesting. I don't know, it just had the feeling of like, I thought what was happening on the other end was them going like, what do we do? Like, what should we do with this? Hey, call Jim over here. We got a weird one. They're saying there's actually a treatment. Should we just pretend we didn't hear this? You know, like that kind of thing. And I kind of liked the idea of it getting to such a climax and then stumbling at this moment of like bureaucracy of everything being in the hands of just some people that are perhaps very ignorant to the situation, very callous, perhaps. I don't know. That added a nice element to this, but this is actually very compelling too. And this sort of mystery, this sort of like revelation afterwards is very in line with I think the core strengths of the series. You know, we don't know what was up with that conversation, and then we see the other side of it. We don't know what's up with all these eccentricities of the school, and then we realize it's all a hallucination. We can't figure out how it was that Megune fit inside the car, but we actually figured out long before that it was a hallucination. But later we learn, you know, things like that. The the revelations. Ooh. So this is what makes the infighting in Randall stop? Operation Great Cleansing ready. But then at least a few of the soldiers, this one guy, we can see them sweating through their helmets. He's like, oh gee, I can't do this. Some poor high school girl that's been suffering this entire time. We're really just gonna bomb her to death? I like this, I like this. That when in the end what did it was the very fact that they had suffered so much, the very fact that they had been through so much, that their story had become so affecting, that when it got out to the people that had the power to kill them, they just couldn't do it. Oh. Oh? He'd had enough. This mustache soldier, he could get a spin-off too. He'd had enough. He shoots the computer, because this is obviously the level frigate in GoldenEye 007 for the N64, and he wanted to see it explode. Yeah, in that game you shoot the computers and they explode. That even as a kid I was like, this is stupid, but I loved it. I loved it. Anyways, to me, shooting the computer is not the most effective method of shutting down your operation, but it does seem like a message. It was a less extreme faction of Randall who stopped the bomb and saved us. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, okay. This is good. This is good. I like that it wasn't just straight up like, oh, okay, I guess we won't bomb you. But that there was still conflict, that there was still actually a credible threat that was only neutralized by the fact that there was this internal conflict. It feels more nuanced. It feels like it's more full of the reality of how people are in these situations. In a way, Shiko-san was right. There was a good Randall after all. That was a big discussion they had back when they were first kind of discovering the Randall Corporation's involvement in all of this, trying to figure out, did they do things innocently? How will they treat us knowing that there are survivors? What started it all was Yuki-senpai's call. If not for that, the bomb would have fallen and the cure for Omega would have been lost forever. So Richan, just sleeping on the helicopter. Seems fine. Mikun getting carried out in a stretcher. On that day, Yuki-senpai, all of us, we saved the world. Now, it's a little troubling that we don't get a shot of Kurumi-chan carried out in the stretcher. At this point, I think I'm quite convinced that she's actually gone. So it's not a unilaterally happy ending. It's not an everybody dance and cheer type end. But that's what the Randall people said. It reminds me, Yuki Senpai still calling you Senpai? Yeah, she did save the world after all. That's not true. Yuki Senpai is an incredible person, but she's not that incredible. I thought they might lean into it. Yeah, she saved the world. Because didn't she actually save the world? Just sure, a lot of other people were involved, but she was the one that got back up, got on the radio. I don't know. Well, if she hadn't got Randall to change their ways, then the bomb would have gone off and there'd be no cure. Phone call with someone you've never met isn't enough to cause real change. I'm sure the people at Randall have been troubled for a long time. Yeah, you know what? That's actually very true. Just as important as Yuki making the call was the person who decided to broadcast it. I'm really feeling like they might spit her off. I don't know. The way she had a wedding ring on, just that little character detail that a lot of the other kind of soldiers, oh, the one guy has a mustache, but generally, they don't have any like identifiers. I think it kind of adds to this unknowability of the Randall Corporation, such that right up until now, we weren't really sure just how much sympathy existed in the corporation as a whole. Anyways, the fact that she had that wedding ring makes me think the author is scheming to tell another story. Maybe. I don't know. And this emphasis here at the end of this series, like, that those people, they did their job too. Sacrificing someone else in order to live is painful. So painful they tried to forget. They acted like no one was there. But when they heard Yuki Senpai's voice, they were forced to remember that there were survivors. And here we can see that that person who took the call is in fact dead. Wouldn't that be amazing? To start a spin-off series for a character that you know from the main series is going to die? I don't know. I would read it. I think that would be pretty interesting. Hearing her voice, they knew that they would be murderers. She says this in those translucent text bubbles that in my mind are associated with like shoujo manga, confessions, ardent pining, and other fluffy, lovely things. But here, kind of a moral imperative. Once you know the face of the other, you cannot deny to yourself that you are a murderer. If you'll allow me a little tangent here, I think it's quite interesting that throughout the series they kill zombies quite indiscriminately. No, I shouldn't say that. There's quite a few scenes where it's like there's a recognition. Well, oh, that's just it. That's just it. Actually, this is entirely to my point. They sometimes have an easy time wiping out zombies, but in situations where they recognize the zombie or they even can interpolate the life of the zombie just from their behavior, they always hesitate. There's a lot of kind of crises that emerge from someone being unable to swing the shovel, as it were, or pull the trigger or whatever. And then, of course, in all of the human-on-human violence and in things like the big gang war during the university arc, there's always a lot of suffering and struggling and second guessing about any action taken against another human being. And then with the Randall Corporation, as I said before, they really made sure that all the soldiers were quite nameless and faceless, that they were always suited up and you couldn't really see their face. There's the philosopher Emmanuel Levinas, a Jewish philosopher who lived through the Holocaust. And one of his most powerful pieces of writing is on the idea of the face of the other. Let me see if I can... yeah, there's a lot of resources about it if you're curious. But the face-to-face, the encounter of the other through the face reveals a certain poverty which forbids a reduction to sameness and simultaneously instills a responsibility for the other in the self. And basically, what Levinas talks about at some length is that the atrocities of mankind, the mass exterminations and the genocides and murders and all sorts of other violence, largely comes down to not the ability to kill humans, but the ability to dehumanize that which is being killed. Yeah, it's quite interesting. This book, Ethics in Infinity, is really nice. That's my favorite one. I should read some of his other works. I say it's my favorite one. It's the only complete work of his that I've read. Anyways, I think it's a very interesting idea that if you can remain ignorant of the people you're killing, you in your mind are not a murderer. And this word murder, which I'm not really sure how it was translated, of course, but in English, that word carries a lot of weight insofar as that it seems to suggest you have seen their face and yet you still murder. I think we were all desperately trying to stay alive. People at Randall's base and the soldiers who came to find us too. We only discovered the cure because Shiko-san, Megune, and a lot of other people were there. So all of us saved the world. Those alive today and those trying to stay alive together. Okay. Yeah, it's a nice idea. And I think this sort of teamwork and camaraderie and just really doing all you can to keep each other alive, to stay with each other. It's a major theme of the series. A major kind of moral of the series is the goodness of trusting in others, and a major kind of plot of the series is always around being able to maintain those connections, being able to be there for one another. So that's true. I think this is a good message. But come on, though. Yuki saved the world! Yuki did it! All y'all were dead in the water! Stuck out on a helicopter, lying in bed. Dead. Only Yuki actually got up and saved the world. Thus spake Naoki Miki. Hey, that's a reference to Thus Spake Zarathustra, which is a work by Nietzsche. Nietzsche and Levinas, not quite in conflict, but definitely two very different ways of seeing the world. Notably, Nietzsche was sometimes cited by Nazis. So in that sense, but Nietzsche himself, you could not call a Nazi by any stretch of the word. Anyways, oh, look at this happy blush. How long has it been since we've seen something like that? Letters for you. Letters, okay, that's interesting. So it seems like stuff is going good. That this is another kind of, I guess, ending that series like this sometimes have, where it's not like the core problems were necessarily solved. It's not like all that loss has been undone. But the remaining characters are super motivated and now spend their lives making things right, helping other people. The one that comes to mind is a series that I'm not actually a big fan of, that I thought was quite troubling. The anime for Magical Girl Raising Project ends with an ending quite like this, where, of course, they've all suffered incredible loss, but the remaining characters are resolved to do what they can to make the world right. And I did kind of like that. I'm sorry if this is too much of a spoiler. I'm trying to make it very generic. But there was a line where they're like, "Oh, you just got back from like defeating like rogue terrorist cells that were kidnapping people in the Far East or something." It's just like so funny to me, like the idea that like magical girls are out there fighting terrorists. But I actually really liked it. I thought that was just such a kind of a beautiful idea that that's how it ends. That they use their powers to go fight terrorists. Okay, so these are letters probably from people that she's helped. that are now reaching out to her to thank her. Whoa! What? Risa is keeping busy like she always does. A district chief in the Reconstruction Authority, after all. She wrote that she has a senpai she's really annoyed with. Okay, I'm like kind of thrown by this. Within 3 years, I guess this isn't too shocking that they've organized to the extent that there's like a reconstruction authority. Makes sense that Risan would work there, I guess. She's quite a builder of communities and relationships. Um, but the fact that it's playing out with like these sort of like office tropes, you know, this very cliched scene of Risan. I told you 1,000 times you gotta sign your TPS reports. It's going, sorry. And then she looks over and she's like blushing. And the idea is like, oh, she's annoyed by him, but deep down, she's kind of interested in the senpai. It's just so, it's just so ridiculous. Yeah, you know what though? I've been saying this the whole time. That one of the magic of this series is that you can so easily imagine how it would be just a normal slice of life. Like you can imagine how all the characters would get along and the sort of normal slice of life adventures they'd have. And the whole thing just kind of writes itself in that genre. And so when you're having all of these horrible zombie adventures, all this suffering, you're very acutely aware, like, this is what I'm being denied. Like, if it wasn't for all of this zombie business, we would be having a nice time, I don't know, going to a festival, going to the beach, having a cultural festival at high school. So I think this is kind of what's happening. The zombie stuff is over, so now all of the characters are heading off into their own cliche genres. And Risan now gets to be the star of a workplace shoujo romance series. I think it's deliberately that cliche. I don't know if it's like they're actually aiming for the psychological effect I'm talking about. I don't know. That is maybe just my own like psychosis or whatever. But I don't know. Like I think that's like a nice idea to me. What the fuck? Kurumi's alive? Kurumi senpai is alive. Whoa! She's trying to be a doctor, right? Studying very hard, but she's still having trouble. On her sign, it's like meet something. Meet touch? I don't know what that means. And then on the other sign, it's like something mu wa something good span. I don't know. Doesn't matter. That again, it's like I wouldn't go so far as to say it's cliched, but this kind of inspirational story manga is definitely out there. So the story of a girl who had suffered a terrible ailment. She's now confined to a wheelchair. She uses a wheelchair while still studying to be a doctor, still studying to rise to this great and noble profession. That's easily a manga. That's so easily a manga. She gets to go off and have a nice cliche manga life too. You're traveling alone again after this. I think so. I was planning on heading north next. Did you get lonely? Whenever I feel lonely, I just come back here. Okay. But the four of you would be together forever. It's strange myself. At the time, I just thought the only thing I needed was for all of us to be together. But now we've each found our own paths through life. And there's, what's her face? I'm sorry. There's no way I would remember that character's name. Raising her baby. There's, they have like a puppet of the same brand, that mustachioed bear. It's cute. Another manga. Child-raising manga. So popular right now. There's Ri-chan, of course, smiling and blushing, talking to her senpai. Such a manga. And the Gaming Club. She's still just got a PSP. I guess the PS Vita was never invented, let alone the Switch in this timeline. So it sucks for her, but you know, there's still a lot of great games on the PSP. Still probably 3,000 hours worth of JRPGs. That can eat up a good chunk of your time. That's a manga. Girls hanging out, playing games, building stuff, flying drones. They get to go have their cliched manga life. Though your bodies may be far apart, your souls are connected. Yuki Senpai is at Meguri Goka. She's very excited. She became a teacher. I'm calling it. She became a teacher. Of course, right? She loves Megune. She's not at all qualified. Many aspects of her personality do not befit a teacher. But I guess that was true of Megune as well. She was a little scatterbrained. But her love for her students is what really mattered. A new semester is starting. And she's got the cross necklace. Good morning, Yukine. Told you to call me Takeya-sensei. This is, of course, in direct parallel with the very, very beginning of the series. It's cute. Looks like she's teaching like kindergartners or something. It's probably more her speed. No offense. I think she'd make a great kindergarten teacher. But once she had to start teaching the kids like math or whatever, look elsewhere. But yeah, this is obviously a manga. New teacher. She's a little scatterbrained, but she loves her students. Her students are adorable. They have all sorts of fun together. It writes itself. It just writes itself. So what I'm wondering about though, all of these, as I said, are like cliche and they don't at all involve zombies. Only the fact that it's like the Reconstruction Committee and that Rikun is doing some sort of expedition related to survivors and stuff, we're presuming. And she says, tough all over. Aside from that, looking at their futures, looking at their presents, I guess that is, looking at their adult lives, it seems totally disconnected from the zombie apocalypse that they had lived through. But I am curious, like, this is the one that gets me. How many kids are there going to be in Yuki-chan's class? In Yuki-sensei's class, I'm sorry. Will they kind of acknowledge that there was actually a huge population loss? And we'll see a shot of Yuki teaching like 5 kids in her class? To me, that would be a really nice touch. It would be quite haunting. That in the end, it's like a message of hope, of new beginning, but that there has been significant, unignorable loss. I don't know. See, this is good. This is good. I hear school in the old days was incredible. There were all kinds of things like the physics room and the music room. Yeah, see that sort of thing I think is really interesting. That they really are living in a different world now. And that these shots of the school, there's still dilapidation, that there's still stains everywhere, and it's a good counterpoint. It's like, this is a nice parallel. At the beginning, the school looked ideal, but that was just because Yuki saw the dilapidated school the way she remembered it before the apocalypse. Now, the school is completely dilapidated, and this girl sees it as that. She knows it's just that, but she's like imagining the things that Yuki knew. You know? It's a nice parallel. But I really love the way school is now. And that's because nice shots. So there's a lot of kids in this class. But maybe it's like an all-year class. Like maybe there's like older kids and stuff in here too. Today before we start class, I have a wonderful secret just for you. Do you like studying? I hate it. A girl after her own heart. Studying is very important, but school isn't just a place for studying. It's where you can make friends and get help from your teachers. Your teachers and friends are here, so you can have fun together and share your burdens. And here we get a plethora of flashbacks, all the way back to when the art style was really different. Nice, nice. Oh, and they sent the balloons with the letters. Ooh. Ooh, that was a nice chapter. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. We'll maybe do a little bit of reflecting on the overall arc of this series later. Kind of fun together and share your burdens. It's very important to talk about your worries. By connecting with others, you can even save the world. Hopefully you won't have to. But if you do have to, all of us make school something incredible. A lot has happened and there aren't really any schools left anymore. So wouldn't it be nice to try again? So starting today, you and I are beginning this school. And they're outside. See, this sort of imagery I love. They're outside and the cherry blossoms fluttering around them. The start of the new semester cherry blossoms, not just graduation cherry blossoms. You and I are beginning this school. I like that in the end there was like a theme of school again. Of course, school life. Starts in a school. And the whole arc of they went to university next, then they went to the job site, and then they went back to high school. Because still more to learn. Like so many. I don't know. Who goes back to high school? Hey Megune, I made it. Start class. Okay. Okay. Thank you for reading. All right. All right. Well, that's that. That's that. That's the end of the series. Been reading it for many years now. I think I picked it up around when, well, I picked it up right after the anime ended, I believe. And the anime came out in 2015, so I've been reading it for 5 years, I guess. No, not even 5 years, like 4.5 years. That feels like a long time. You know, that's a significant chunk of someone's life. That's what always hits me when a manga ends. That it's something that it's like not so long that I can't kind of hold it in my head. I think I can remember like all the major things that happened. Don't challenge me on that, but I feel like I can. And yet when I think of the stretch of life that covers, it's quite substantial. That I was reading this that whole time. When I can think of all the other things that happened in that span, they're also accompanied by this series. This holds true for all manga. It's just something that I think about every time a series ends. Yeah, it was nice. The art was fantastic. The premise was shocking and fresh. I think its major strengths were the mystery aspect of it, the kind of sometimes you were unclear like what was real, if there was going to be another hallucinatory twist. I thought the character writing was very strong. I thought the way the other sorts of mysteries, like the mysteries around what was actually happening, the agent, the virus, Omega, all the things we learned about that, I thought were quite well brought out. I think the gimmick at the start where only Yuki wasn't acting like it was the zombie apocalypse, and they were doing all of these activities to try to ensure their survival, but at the same time figuring out ways to convince Yuki that it was just normal school activities. I think that was actually like the strongest in terms of premise. And the fact that they had the courage to abandon that, to have Yuki confront reality in that extremely powerful moment where she tries to shut the window and still feels the wind come through and realizes that it's broken. Ooh, that was good. And the fact that they abandoned all of the initial aspects of the premise, that they lived in the school, that there was that kind of coziness, that kind of feeling of not really having any agency, any information, or any control, but just doing small things to eke out their survival. They gave up these things. They had them actually leave the school. They had major plot developments. They had other substantial characters and major arcs and entirely new lines of conflict, human versus human. I've got to give them credit for that. Like that's a difficult thing to do, to establish yourself with one sort of premise and then evolve the story into something else entirely. Um, I don't know. I think the tone of the manga was strongest when they were just at the school. It had such a unique feeling after that, or during that. And then after that, it became more about the plot, more about the actual characters themselves, and less about kind of that tone or that feeling. I don't know. So I don't know if I'm saying I would have liked them to just stay in the school the whole time, because it was quite interesting, the things that happened after they left. I don't know. The ending was quite satisfying. I was very happy for the characters. In the end, I did want a happy ending. As much as it would have been so powerful, so unforgettable to just have them sitting there in silence as the bombs fall, I think this is a lot kinder and what the characters deserve and what the readers deserve as a treat after all that. Even Kurumi made it. I really didn't see that coming. They dropped it so nonchalantly, like, oh, she's trying to be a doctor, that I think that maybe it wasn't even supposed to be like a surprise or a twist, and that maybe I read too much into the fact that she was there as kind of a hallucinatory ghost along with all these other people that really were dead. um, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say. But I guess this video is quite long already, so I don't really need to say much else. I really hope you enjoyed reading this series with me. It's one of the few series that we've finished where I'm pretty sure I made a video for every single chapter. Of course, a lot of them are not on this channel anymore, but you can go to some extreme lengths to find them. You can find that video where I have all the torrent files and then torrent them. And it's a lot of work. You can look at the database, the spreadsheet that people have put together to find out where those videos are if you'd like to watch them. I'm sorry, it's a big pain. I wish there was an easier way to do it. That's the best way I can come up with, though. Yeah, again, I always say this when a series ends. I'd love to make some retrospective videos. I'd love to kind of go over some of my favorite moments and characters and what I liked about the series, what I thought didn't work so well. I always say that, and then I never end up doing it because it's quite substantial to try to take a look at a whole series on that level. But again, I'll say it. I'd like to do it if I somehow get more time, more energy, and more capabilities. Then we can look forward to it. But it means though that for now we're gonna say goodbye. Like I think unless that opportunity comes, this is probably the last we'll talk about Gakkou Gurashi. So yeah, that's it then. Goodbye.